Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Elyse Neumeier, Chief People Officer at EverQuote. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I was just saying before the show how much I admire your background and what you've done with the room. It's always nice seeing into everyone's lives as well. And
Yes.
how many people I spoke to, I can't tell you, that have been like on this massive home decoration like marathon over the last year. It's like, well, we're all trapped inside. We may as well, do up the house and change things around.
We've just been staring at it, and I've spent 11 months trying to figure out what do I do to make this more interesting. So I'm not sure if that's success, but
it looks really cool. Looks like a place I definitely want to spend time in. Tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where you are now.
So I've been at EverQuote about a year and a half now. Prior to EverQuote, I was the founding talent strategy business partner at Wayfair, which is kind of like an HRBP, kind of like an internal consultant for people strategy related topics. And I've built out that concept, worked with the CTO. And when I say the CTO, I mean the 3 CTOs we had during my 3 years there. And prior to that, I did nothing related to HR at all. I was a management consultant in the general business sphere. Went to business school, started my career in marketing, had no intention of becoming an HR professional, had no idea even really what that entailed. And a couple of serendipitous moments in my career, meeting the right person at the right time, meeting the head of talent at Wayfair, who was just like a charismatic person that you just wanted to work for. And I was like, I don't really care what I do for her. I just want to work for her, and realize that this is where I belong. And I would never leave this field now. This is definitely incredible combination of really interesting problems. And I find it fun every day.
It's never going to be a boring day.
Yes, it's never boring. I guess that's actually a better way of putting it. There are definitely some tough days,
of course,
but it's certainly never boring.
Yeah. Tell everyone a little bit more about, who aren't aware though, of EverQuote.
Sure.
What do you do, and also why you joined?
So EverQuote is an online insurance marketplace. So we help people who are looking for insurance, auto, home, life, find the best rates. It's kind of like hotels.com or TripAdvisor, but for insurance. And we're about 500 people now, about 10 years old as a company, just growing ridiculously fast. It's blown up over the last couple of years. Why I joined, I'd say there's 2 reasons. One, and always first and foremost, the people. So that's how I pick where I go next. I follow the person that I want to work for. And so I met Jamie, who's our CEO now, and Seth, who was our CEO until recently. I was like, these people are interesting. They have a very unique perspective on people. I put them through the ringer in the interview process. I really pressure tested how they think about things. What do they do?
What were some of the questions you asked them, just out of curiosity?
Well, I was very convinced that I was not going to leave Wayfair. I loved Wayfair. And so I was like, I'm just going to ask you the really hard questions that I wish I asked previously. So, I asked them how they think about compensation. I asked them what people get paid. I remember saying to Jamie, I said, if I accept this job, I will have access to this information. So you better be honest with me.
Wow.
Do you pay top of market? Do you pay for good talent? Do you care about good talent or quantity of talent? I asked about how they've made difficult decisions regarding people before, and what they wanted to build. I didn't really want to. I'm not an HR professional. I didn't really just want to plod along. I wanted to find someone who wanted me to dream big. And they answered those questions exactly how I wanted. They're like, we want someone to shake it up. We want to become, Netflix, Google, like do something real big, change it up. We think we're going to be pretty big. And so that's the other reason I joined. I remember being like, I don't know, insurance, like
yeah.
Granted, I was coming from furniture, also not the most exciting area, but they showed me kind of the trajectory and the opportunity. There's something like $150 billion spent each year in the insurance, like marketing channels. So just getting people to purchase policies costs $150 billion a year. That's crazy. There's so much inefficiency there, and there's so much opportunity to make that experience better.
Isn't it interesting though, the questions that you ask when you're already in a company and you're employed, and what that you love, because you've got nothing to lose. Like I remember being in a company for 10 years and I was like, I'm never going to leave. And I did do a couple of interviews over those years, and you just go all in. Like during the interview, because like not that I don't care if I don't get the job, but you're like, well, I've got nothing to lose right now, so I'm going to ask all of those questions that I would maybe be afraid to ask if I was unemployed at the time and I really wanted the job. So you don't want to rock the boat. But in reality, they love that even more because you're challenging them, right?
It's the best way to show how you think about things and what you care about. I'm a big believer, by the way, and my company knows this. I always interview. If I get requests or, recruiters reach out to me, I think it's the best way to learn and, stay sharp. And in the beginning, that was how I would do research. I was like, I don't know what an HRBP does. So anytime someone interviewed me for an HRBP role, I would ask, like, what exactly does an HRBP do here? And then I would take that back and use that for running my team. So I think it's a great way to stay sharp. It's just like good professional development to always interview.
Yeah. Over the last kind of few months, what's been the biggest challenge for you and the team?
So we have, like everybody else, have faced the challenges of COVID and team members, being sick, working from home, all of that. But we were thrown a really tough loop in November of last year. Our CEO and co-founder passed away unexpectedly. And that was, just a gut punch at the end of an already incredibly tough year. I mean, he was the heart and soul of the company. He and his best friend from college started EverQuote 10 years ago. I mean, the culture was Seth. Seth was the culture. It's a larger than life personality. Like I said, I came to EverQuote because I was like, this is the guy I want to work for. He is like one of those crazy geniuses who just dreams big and it happens. And and then one day he was gone. And so I think are kind of back to business as usual. We've really come together as a team. We spent some time mourning, and there's so much in his legacy that like gives us energy and inspiration to move on. But that, it made COVID seem like a piece of cake compared to dealing with the loss of Seth.
So sorry to hear that, especially during everything else that's going on. Adding that to it, as you said, it makes everything else seem trivial. So did you say, sorry to obviously, did you say unexpected?
Yes, it was completely unexpected.
Wow.
The young guy. It's not the call that you want to get on a Saturday morning. But I'm just incredibly grateful for the team that we have, and definitely learned a lot of lessons. And I have all sorts of, morbid advice for teams and how to prepare for the unexpected coming out of this. But there's no one I'd rather work with through a crisis like that than our leadership team. It's, people just rallied together, figured it out, and we got back to work as much as possible.
Yeah. And you've said it multiple times now, but it's brought you all closer together.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's, it's when you go through kind of like a shared trauma like that, you have a real bond with the team, and you get to see people in a way that is much more vulnerable than you would typically see. So I think, our new CEO, Jamie, he was a well-loved leader before. I like, there's nothing easier than transitioning Jamie to CEO. Everyone adores him. But people didn't know him. And then seeing him mourn Seth, and it made him a real person. And I think people respect him and are inspired by him even more so than they were before.
By showing that vulnerability. How did you, am I asking, how did you communicate back then to the business?
So we told people right away.
But what by email? Like
yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Must have been tough for you to write that.
Yes. Yeah. It's a crazy email to write. And I know, so many people told me afterwards that we have a pretty good sense of humor They're like, is that a joke? Like my first instinct when I read that was like, you guys are pranking us. Yes, I think adding to the complexity and challenge of it is that we couldn't get together. I mean, I could
Yes, you
imagine
couldn't
what this
mourn
would have
together.
been like if we had been in the same location and we could like literally, hug each other. But instead, I had to write an email. And then the first day we were back, because it happened on a Saturday. On Monday, we took 2 hours and we just opened up a Zoom for the entire company. And we actually included not just our company, but we have some like sister companies who are came from the same incubator that we came from, and some of the communities that we're really engaged with. And people just shared memories of Seth for, I think it was over 2 hours. It was incredible. It was just incredible to hear. And they're like, the stories were crazy. Some of the things now as an HR leader, I'm like, oh my God, he did what? Some things should stay in Las Vegas, but they will come out when people remember you. And that's the legacy. And people just love being with him. So it was incredible. And so we tried to create those spaces, even if we can't be together in person, we tried to create virtual spaces that would enable people to just, be together, share memories.
Yeah. Was I think you did the best job you could, right? And I'm glad. Thanks for sharing that, because we have this show where typically people come on the show and they talk about all the amazing things that are going on and how great this is and stuff like that. But no one talks about these moments in your career as a HR leader, and you can never really be prepared, right? Let's be honest. And there will become a day where someone listening right now will be in a similar position, as well. So yeah, there's the good times, but there's also the hard times that no one really talks about. Let's be honest. Not really. Why would you? I suppose, as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I often talk about how HR often has, shoulders the emotions, the complaints of the organization. And I think this was a very sharp example of that. I think one thing that I certainly learned is that you have to also take time for yourself to process and make sure the HR team who's listening and providing so much support is also taking time for themselves and getting support for themselves. It took me probably a month before I realized like really what had happened. I was just kind of in go mode and, well, I've got to get these things done. I got to get a grief counselor and all of, get his affairs in order. And a month later, I was on a call with our chairman of the board, and he said something that I just had. It was one of those moments where I was like, I wish I could hear Seth's reaction to that. And that's when I lost it. So it was like 6 weeks later. It took me that long to process what had really happened. And that was in that moment where I was like, he's really gone and I have to deal with this myself.
Yeah.
But
that's good. That's good advice and good reflection. I'm seeing the same thing happen with many of your peers during the last year. And even now, where they're in such kind of fight or flight mode where they're just trying to take care of everyone else, but they don't take a moment to take care of themselves. And then it's coming, inevitably months later, there's that breakdown. They start crying, or because they've just been holding it inside for way too long.
You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and give yourself that lifeboat as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure out of this obviously tragedy, there's going to become so much more energy and motivation for the team and engagement, and to really help bring his dreams to life in the company and deliver. So I'm sure you've probably seen a huge increase in those areas. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I mean, it's you do it for the business, but you do it for Seth. And he taught us all so much. There's just so much we're still, I quote him at least, a couple times a week. There's still so much we can take from him that keeps us going. And people, I think, are still able to have those, like, what would Seth do in this situation kind of moment, and use it to drive them. Like, we should dream bigger. We should go harder, because that's what he would do.
Yeah. Amazing. So what are some of the things that you're working on now, looking forward, that you're most excited about?
Trying to decide if I'm excited about this or I'm absolutely terrified. It's somewhere in between.
It's normally a balance between both.
As things usually are.
Yeah.
So we used to be co-located. This is a common refrain. Like we were a co-located company. Everyone was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Over the last year, obviously, we've been completely remote. And we also opened offices in Seattle, Washington, Evansville, Indiana, Belfast, Northern Ireland, and New Delhi, India. All remote. I've never met any of these people. And we've hired people across the country. So whether we like it or not, we kind of just went for it and now have to embrace this hybrid model. And so, like pretty much everyone in my seat, I have to figure out what does it look like to return to work when it's safe to do so, and how do you possibly maintain that even playing field we have right now, that just like glorious, it doesn't matter if you're in Belfast or Boston, we're all on Zoom, we're all having internet issues. How do we maintain that in a world where there is an office where people can go to? And then the other piece of it is, I think, just from the initial surveys we've done, people do really like the flexibility that we've given people. They like the ability to work from home a couple days a week. I certainly adore not having a 2-hour commute every day. That is like pure wasted time that kills me. But how do we maintain that flexibility and don't create like a FaceTime arms race where, yeah, we start out with people being remote, but then you got to be in the office on Tuesdays, and now there's an important meeting on a Wednesday, and then suddenly we're back to the way things were. Because I think there's so much that we gained in this last year. We've certainly, of course, lost a lot. But I think so many good things came out of this, like just our ability to work in a distributed workforce has probably leaped, 10 or 20 years from where it would have been if it had continued at that pace. The ability for people to have better work-life integration, not balance for sure. I think that
no such thing.
Like lost, we've lost boundaries, and I love my job, so I don't lament that as much, but I feel so much less stress because I know that I can get the laundry done in between meetings, and like I was here to
you don't come home to like a pile of you don't come home to a pile of plates in the sink and a pile of laundry, right?
The dishes still don't get done despite two of us being home all day. I don't know what's going on there, but I think that there's just so much, and getting to spend so much more time with my daughter. I don't want to lose that. I'm like I said, it's exciting.
I'm the same, by the way. Yeah, I said to my co-founder, I was like, I can't imagine going back to a world where we're jumping on planes, flying around the world doing our events, and not being able to spend that quality time with my daughter. It just, I just can't imagine doing it. And I think I'll add one thing to what you said as well is just how people are now kind of leading with empathy and the emphasis that we're now putting on mental health and well-being, or just well-being in general, overall, which has been really great to see. And again, I hope that continues long after this. And you mentioned something before about the workplace, and I think one of the big concerns I'm hearing is about the inclusivity of, if you aren't in the office and you can't get in, or you missed that feel like, are you missing out?
Yes.
Or are you overlooked for perhaps that promotion because you can't be there? And that's going to be really tough to kind of balance that, or you miss that face-to-face meeting, right? Because even if 8 people in a room are face-to-face and there's 2 people on the virtual call, by nature they're not going to be able to interact and engage in a way that they would if they were there face-to-face, if that makes sense. It doesn't put everyone on an equal playing field. So trying to balance that out is going to be, it's going to be really interesting.
That's the thing that's so tough. It's like I can put this all on paper in a way that makes it sound great. Everyone goes into the office 2 days a week, and we don't care where you work. I mean, we have in our philosophy, like, you work where you work best. We trust you. We hired you because we think you're a really smart person. Do your thing. Let's not get in the way of that. But the mechanics of it and figuring out, well, actually, like, finance actually has to be in the office, and can people operations not be in the office when I have a class of new hires starting? Like, does someone have to be there to greet them? And then is that fair? And how do you manage that? And I think the important context here is I am a deep believer in like no rules. It's the Reed Hastings book, how he thought about building Netflix, and how few rules they had, and they really didn't want to lean on policy. They wanted to lean on judgment. And I ascribe to that so deeply. I hate policy. I would much rather
Trust
trust
people.
smart people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And that feels, holding on to that in this very unknown environment is going to be a tremendous challenge, because you could probably manufacture exactly all the right pieces. You could say you can only go in on these days and you have to use Zoom for all calls, and then suddenly
You lose what you just
lost.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance, and there are a couple of companies that operated this way before, so there are a few case studies out there, but not many. But also the other complexities that have now added into the picture in regards to health and safety. They weren't there before, so we're now adding those into the picture. It's just so much, and I think I'm interested to see a couple of years from now where we are, because no one's really kind of solved this. Everyone's on this journey now. Everyone's just kind of starting. Everyone's now, the vaccines are here and people are getting vaccinated as well, so that's going to open things up a little bit more. I've got an interview with a CHRO after this podcast who has the opposite stance of everyone has to go back and we're all working from the office, and that's the stance that we've taken. So not everyone is going flex work.
No.
Maybe people listening are thinking that's the case, but not everyone is. There's some large, I'm not going to mention them on the show, but there's some large multinationals that you all know of who I'm speaking to are actually like, we haven't announced it yet, Chris, but everyone's returning to the work. We want everyone in the office. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Everyone going back is a very comfortable answer, or at least it solves a lot of problems quickly. And
it does, doesn't it? Yeah, you don't have to deal with the realities of the other.
We know how that works.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, or fortunately, like we've already gone all in. I mean, we have offices all over the world now. We've hired people in every corner of the U.S. I physically don't have space for the people that we've hired.
Even if you wanted to.
Even if we wanted to. I remember right before we went remote, we were like trying to figure out, how do we eke out another 50 seats in our building? Like, are we going to have to move soon? And then we've hired 150 people in the area since then. It's like, I literally, and I add in, new social distancing guidelines and like the density of people that I can have. I don't have space. This is now like, okay, I have this reality of we are going to be a distributed workforce. We need to figure out how to make it work. And I firmly believe you can.
Yeah. Well, companies have proven, we have proven it already that we can do it. It's interesting because most companies now, they're just kind of doing like the WeWork type models where they have locations all over the world, but it's like you can drop in. So there's still there's some people that cannot work from home for various reasons. And they need a place to go. Let's not forget about that, because that's still a huge part of the population that are in organizations who, by being at home, is really challenging as well. But it's almost going to be like, I don't know if this makes sense, like a gym membership model where if everyone turns up on the same day, you're not going to have enough room in the gym as well. So there's going to be some systems that are going to be built in place to track that and see what that looks like. And we're going to have something really interesting. I'm really interested to see how the data aspect and the data we can collect on this and the analytics, this also opens up a really exciting area. So aside from that, what are some of the other areas that you're working with the team?
The team as a whole, when I joined EverQuote a year and a half ago, there were 4 people on the team, and they were all recruiters for the most part. And they were doing a fabulous job recruiting and keeping everything else, kind of managed and more than kind of managed. Like they, did performance reviews and learning and development and all of those things with just 4 people, and most of their time being spent recruiting. So the big area of focus this year is building out those non-recruiting functions and really investing heavily in learning and development, and taking some awesome programs that they've had in place for years and figuring out how do we scale it? How do we we have a program for first-time managers.
Digitize it, put it online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That was first and foremost. It's all going to be virtual.
Yeah.
But then also, how do you make that valuable for people who are a little later in their career? And our demographics have shifted too since a lot of these things were created. So how do we make sure that our content is valuable and relevant and pushing people who are
and inclusive, right?
Managers of managers.
and inclusive as well. You know, you've
Yes.
got people in India, you've got people in, you know, it needs to also, yeah, so I've add closed captions to it now. You might have to add, there's so much to,
Yes.
to think about.
Yeah, no, the complexity, you know, and the types of roles and the types of, you know, we had very few people who had managed anywhere outside of EverQuote before, and now suddenly we have this influx of new people. You know, we've doubled in size over the last year. Lots and lots of different ideas. What is core to how we manage, and what is the EverQuote way of being a people manager, and how do we take? Because I love learning from other companies, and I tell this to everybody on their first day when I do their intro. We hired you because you're really smart. We also hired you because you're really interesting experience. So never hesitate to say, hey, at my last company, we did X. I love hearing that. I love knowing how did they, you know, like you are the best intel and the best research I can get. So how do we take all of that learning, but then, you know, really make sure that what we're doing is true to EverQuote, and we're not just taking, you know, the Amazon model whole hog. We're taking the pieces that
Yeah.
resonate with us and making it our own.
Yeah. Do you have any do you have a platform in place already, or is it something you're still looking at, like an LMS or LXP, etc.?
I'm not really. So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really feel the need to have an LMS. Like the way we do training right now is very hands-on. So you go through, it's a cohort experience. You know, you're getting a lot of interaction. You have like a peer buddy you go through it with. I like my team is amazing. I am just blown away by this training that they've gone through. It's a quarter long manager training, and you know, you do it, I think it's like one Wednesday a month through the quarter.
And it's led by other leaders,
interactive.
and it's led by,
yes.
Each module is led by different leaders. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interactive. It's not like a log in and take a class. Our philosophy generally is like, either we do something that is very, you know, all in and super interactive and very kind of bespoke to EverQuote, or we say, if you want to take a class on like LinkedIn Learning or whatever, we'll reimburse you for it if you think that you need that. But I'm not going to tell you what you need to do or when you need to do it. You tell me when you need it. So we, again, taking that like that no rules rules approach. It's like you got to ask for it. You get it when you ask, but there's very little that we're pushing out to people, except when it's like so clearly we need manager training, and our managers craved it, and they
need it now more than ever. If you're a new manager in this world, where you're managing, it's hard enough managing face to face. You're managing people remotely as well, where you don't have those natural touch points that you typically get in the workplace, or building that bond in a relationship. A lot easier to do face to face, right? And then you're dealing with people that are going through a number of things at home, mental health, well-being, family life. It's just, they need a training more now more than ever. But what if they want to access the information after? There's no way of doing that. Do you like record it and say, like, if you do want to look back and say how we approach hiring and this is our best practice, how as a manager, where am I going to find that information?
So we have we document everything. We have an internal wiki on Confluence, and so we use that as, you know, every training has a deck that goes with it, and you could access it afterwards.
So there is a place to grab it though.
There.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do feel like sometimes an NMS does sometimes make organizations lazy in a way, where it's like, oh, it's all in here. Here you go. Whereas like, the training I had, a very small amount of managerial training I had, was all in that interactive, face-to-face. You're learning from other leaders in the room. It wasn't a video I just pressed, because then you're going to get real life examples, real life case studies. You can say, you can bring perhaps your challenge of something that's actually happening. Look, here's something that's happened this week in my team, and then discuss that with a group and get that feedback. You can't get that by watching a video. As well.
I can't imagine learning to be a manager through a one-sided video. I don't, and I'd hate the statement that makes about how much we care about good managers. If we said, oh, here's a video, best of luck. Like, we really care.
It's good to have it in addition to the training. Like, if you have that in addition to the training, then great, but it shouldn't be the answer.
Yeah.
As well. But look, well, thanks so much first and foremost. It's been a really cool conversation, and learned a lot from it. And I'm sure this is your first CPO role, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So interesting. What would you kind of said to yourself looking back of when you first started the role? What advice would you have given to yourself?
Oh my goodness. Memorize the general counsel's phone number. Put them at the top of your speed dial. Yeah, certainly as I was interviewing, I did get to meet our general counsel and CFO in the interview process. So it's like, cool. I don't really know why I need to know these guys, but like, no, they're my saviors frequently, and they're just a font of knowledge and support. No, I'm not. The only thing I can say is that it's even more fun than you can imagine. Like it has been just so much fun. And, having the ability, I worked in, one part of talent strategy before this, but having the ability to think about the entire ecosystem together is really fun. I guess the biggest surprise to me was like, at EverQuote, at least, a lot of people think of, the HR department, the CPO, like you recruit. I've never recruited a day in my life. And my team knows that I would make the worst recruiter ever. I'm horrible. Like I don't even know the first thing about it. Luckily I have, this
a great team.
Incredible. They are absolute experts at it. But that was one thing that I realized, at least in this company, like that's the big thing that I had to, get over is that, people came to me and they're like, I need to hire this role. I'm like, okay, great. What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
So I've learned a ton on that front and have just the utmost respect. Recruiters have it's sales, but like 10x more complicated. So
you don't have to be. That's just something I hear all the time from your peers. You don't have to be an expert at everything. I've spoken to some of the most successful CPOs in the world who have come from a sales and marketing background, and now they're the chief people officer. Literally zero experience in the role, but then they hire amazing people around them that have that experience, right? And they go, Chris, I asked my team, like I've been interviewing leaders. I'm like, how do you do this? And they're like, Chris, I asked someone on my team because I don't know how to do that as well. But that's why I have amazing people around me. I'm going to jump into our quick fire round before we wrap up.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask you some questions and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready? Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Similar questions to what I just asked, but I'm going to kind of reframe it. What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a senior HR leader?
Probably realizing that I could learn what I didn't know. I felt like there's a lot that I didn't know, but you can learn it.
Yep.
And get the right people, and you don't even need to learn it. Then you can just have a great team.
How would your family describe what you do for a living?
I would say it's funny now because here's the thing. Before they had no idea, but now that my husband listens to me all day, he thinks that I just chat with people all day. He says that you just get paid to chat with people. And my daughter I have no idea what she thinks. She thinks I just type a lot on the computer.
How old's your daughter?
She's 3.
She's 3. Oh yeah, it's fair enough.
Mommy just uses the pooter. That's what she thinks. But yeah, no, it is funny. My husband, the benefit though is that when I've had a hard day, he knows, like, because he witnessed it. He's like, you had some really hard conversations today. I'm like, thank goodness. I don't have to rehash it. You know?
I had the same thing with my wife as well, because she deals with, like she works in financial services and she deals with a lot of client cases where they may be losing their home or their livelihood. And she's on, and I'd never heard those calls before. And I've listened in over the last year to a few. And I'm like, wow, you have to do that every day. So those days where she comes home is like, oh, I just need a drink and I need to just chill on the sofa and just leave me alone. Now I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, fair enough. Now I really get it. What about advice?
It's one of the silver linings.
Yeah, it's true. What's one piece of business advice, the best piece of business advice, you've ever received?
I'm going to answer 2.
Yeah.
2 pieces of advice that I was given in my very first job that I keep with me and think about frequently. One is you never want to be the smartest person in the room. Always find a room where there are smarter people. And 2, never do anything, say anything, or write anything that you wouldn't be glad to see on 60 Minutes or the evening news. It's great words to live by, especially in HR. But that was my first year out of school. A couple of wise people told me those things, and I won't forget it.
Yeah, I've definitely had a few emails that I've written out that I've had to check myself and go, let me just read that one more time and go, oh, maybe I shouldn't send that. Maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had in person, or not at all. What's one misconception people have about you?
That's a great question. I think, well, so I try to be super transparent. So I think it would be really hard for people to have like not, deep knowledge of my life because I'm such an open book. I do wonder though, like sometimes there's some people that I work with who think I'm I can be very heartless or come across that way with some, parts of my world, and they probably are like, how does she in HR? Like she's, pretty jaded. And then there are probably some people that I work with who see really just like the softer side of me and are probably like, she's a pushover. I could see that being a misconception on either side because I certainly pull out different sides of my personality in different situations.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I don't think that you could have a misconception about me. I am who I am.
You like it or not.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then last question, what's one thing about your business that you're most excited about?
Well, I think that the opportunity to, I can get like on a whole soapbox about why insurance is really important. I think it's a really critical societal good. It is the safety net that people have when the worst happens, and the worst will happen. So I think that the opportunity to completely transform how people interact with insurance and think about insurance is huge. I get really excited about this becoming part of someone's kind of financial well-being and something that they engage with more than like, oh, I think my mortgage company is forcing me to have home insurance. And I think we're going to play a critical role in redefining how people think about their insurance and making sure that they're covered. I know that's an odd thing to get excited about, but
Listen,
my husband works in insurance too, so like the two of us we're long gone. We're very excited about
one of I'm with you on that. I never really understood it. I thought it was like you just kind of have to have it. Like when we get a mortgage, you need home insurance, health insurance. Just take it for granted. I need to renew my health insurance right now. Actually, so maybe I should go on their website. It really, people don't realize it. And when it really hit me, is that one of my co-founder and I's high school, I say high school because that's what you call it, but secondary school PE teachers that we all loved had cancer, and he didn't have insurance, and he really struggled to battle through it, and he recovered and then got it again and again and again, and it's just been been battling with it. And we had a conversation with him last year, and the one thing he said is like on the call to me and Shane is like, make sure you have insurance. And this is what the right insurance cover looks like. This is what it doesn't cover. And he was like really homing in, and it kind of hit me and Shane. And we're like, wow, like this is something we need to take really seriously. This is not something you want to be in a position where, yes, we have the NHS and the healthcare is free, but obviously it only covers so much as well. So yeah, I get what you're saying, because I kind of, before that, I never really appreciated it until that moment. I was like,
no. And yeah, when you are in that moment, there's nothing more important.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been great to connect with you. And obviously, I know you're still on the journey. You always will be. There's no end goal. And every day there's something new. If there's a parting piece of advice you'll give to your other peers out there that are new on their journey or on their career journey, what would that be? And then where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to reach out and say hello?
Parting advice is jump in with, whatever. Like I said earlier, I always interview. I think it's a great way to keep yourself sharp, but it's also a great way to just, constantly expand your horizons about what's possible and where your career can take you. And I landed in this role and my previous role by taking, serendipitous conversations and jumping in, and I don't make decisions with a lot of thought. I kind of just like, yeah, all right, let's do it. And there's no regrets. Everything's a learning opportunity. Everything just, takes you further on the journey. And then, I'm on LinkedIn.
So reach out.
You can find me. I'm always happy to chat on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Well, look, thanks for joining us again, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. This was a blast.
Thanks.